Hello everybody, Michael Fortress here from the Different Battle HQ. And today I will be answering a very, very important question. How would the Bismarck survive? So as we all know, or hopefully most of you know, the Bismarck was sunk. Well, duh. Well, let's just do a little bit of a history wrap-up, I guess you could say. The Bismarck was one of Hitler's finest warships. It was the biggest, baddest ship in the entire Atlantic. And eventually, and as soon as the British saw this mighty ship, they realized that we have to sink this thing. So they sent half the fleet after it, and then, of course, it sunk. But that's just the general understanding of it. Let's get in a little bit more in depth. So, what happened? In 1938, or something like that. So, anyways, 1938, Hitler has ordered the secret rearm of all of Germany. So what's basically going on is that they are rearming, but Germany's navy is completely out of shape. It's only got like 42 U-boats and a handful of destroyers and cruisers, and no battleships. So Hitler decided, by the way, Hitler was a World War I soldier, so in World War I, and everything could be solved with a bigger, badder gun. So he said, we need bigger, badder battleships than Britain or Germany. Not Britain or America, sorry. So, what he ordered his engineers to construct was 2 battleships that had such long-range capabilities, right? I mean, they can fire long-range and fast. And the result of this was the Bismarck. Now, this thing was the biggest battleship of the time. It was deadly. It had an anti-torpedo belt, which is basically a belt that goes around the depth, the underside of the hull, which basically prevents torpedo blasts from ripping through the hull. So anyways, Hitler says, get this battleship out as soon as possible. So then of course the ship is sent out, and but as it's going out, it's spotted by a British observation plane. And so, hold on, I gotta turn down the music. Sorry, it's just a little bit distracting. So anyways, a British observation plane spots it, and they realize, oh my gosh, they need to destroy this thing. So they send the Prince of Wales and the Hood, sorry, spaced out there a little. They set out the Prince of Wales, the newest battleship in the British Navy, and the Hood, the oldest and battle hero of the British Navy. So anyways, these great warships are exchanging shots, but they're all missing. And then the Bismarck lands one great shot, one epic shot onto the Hood's deck. And the shell, and since the Hood was lightly armored, the shell went straight through the armor and into the magazine, igniting, and basically now it holds the world record for fastest ship sunk. It's not a great record, trust me. It's like 3 minutes. 3 minutes record. So, anyways, what's going on? So then the Prince of Wales has to retreat, and it tells everybody that, hey, our ship, our favorite ship in our entire navy is now at the bottom of the ocean. And Britain is outraged. Churchill is furious. The civilian population is furious. And so they ordered half their entire navy after this thing. Well, it's not half their navy, of course it's not. It's like a lot of ships after this. Destroyers, cruisers, a few battleships, and I would say an aircraft carrier. So, the Bismarck's on its way out to the Atlantic. Maiden voyage, by the way. Then it's spotted by swordfish torpedo planes. And so then there's a little skirmish there. And the torpedo planes launch their torpedoes, and all of them hit the anti-torpedo belt around the outer hull, around the bottom half of the hull, and don't do any damage, except for one. And that one hit the rudder, jamming it in one direction, and then turning it around and around and around and around and around, and so it's locked in one position. Now, in any other battleship or any other ship, the ship would just turn off one screw on the opposite side and then put the propeller, in other words, on the jammed side to full power, and therefore it would correct it, but it would be a lot slower. So what they would, but since and you might be asking, why didn't the Bismarck do this? Well, and to answer that question, we're going to have to go back to when the Bismarck was being built. See, the Bismarck, when it was built, it wasn't built in a big enough dry dock. So when the hull was laid out, the proportions were off. It was too long, but it was too narrow, because the biggest dry dock it had was just too narrow for the dimensions. So what that meant was that the propellers were too clumped together. So what does this mean for our timeline? Well, in our timeline, actually I'm going to answer that later. Sorry. And so anyways, that meant that the Bismarck couldn't do that when it got hit in the rudder. And so it was sent around and around and around in a circle. So anyways, so then the British Navy catches up to the Bismarck, and then bye-bye Bismarck. And that's all I have to say. You can guess what happened later. But since the Bismarck was on a very extremely predictable path, in just constantly going left, it was very easy target to hit. So, yeah, that's basically the story of the Bismarck. In our story, or in our timeline, we're not in our timeline, I mean in different battle HQ timeline, we're going to figure out what could have the Bismarck done differently so it could have survived. Well, the captain could have done anything differently. The captain did everything correct. There's no doubt about it. He made the best decisions possible. If you want to change how the outcome would appear, then we're going to have to go back to when it's being engineered again. And so what I think is how I would have engineered it, is that I would have made the hull in two pieces, see, so it's wider. and you can make it to the full scale. So basically what you got is one half of the ship is under construction, and then once that's finished, you take that half out, then you start working on the other one, and then you just put the two halves together. Now I know what you might be thinking. Well, how are you going to put the two halves together? You're still going to need a bigger dry dock. And to that I answer, shut up, I am not an engineer, okay? I am a strategist. Yes, I'm looking at you, Franklin. Look at you just in your freaking eyes and just doubtful, like saying no. So anyways, blah 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 blah. Fast forward. Swordfish torpedo planes coming in, meow, and torpedoes away, and boom 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 hits, and then it gets hit in its Achilles heel, the rudder, jamming it in one position. But since now we got a wider hull, we can change that, right? Right. So anyways, now that it's in a wider hull, we can change that instead of it going around in a circle, it just turns off one of the propellers, and then the other propeller will just go to full power, therefore equaling it out. And it'll start, and so anyways, what will happen is that it will start limping back to home port in Germany or France. So it would turn around and start heading back. But when the Swordfish torpedo planes get back to their home carrier, their reports, hey, we found the Bismarck, we crippled it, so now it's slower. And so the fleet would say, oh my gosh, we gotta go kill this thing. So they start going flank speed towards this Bismarck. But then the Bismarck is sending out a distress signal for all nearby ships to come to its aid, because it knows it's going to get hit hard. So what I predict is that there's going to have to be at least one or two destroyers and plus a cruiser or two in the vicinity, or farther out, not too close. The British would be closer. So anyways, the Germans sent at least a strike force. No aircraft carriers, of course, and because they didn't really have that many. And so they sent a little strike force to get there to protect the Bismarck on its way home. So anyways, what's going on? So now it's essentially a race to see who can get to the Bismarck first, the Germans or the British. Because if the British get there first, they will sink the Bismarck, but they will have to sink it fast because they don't want the reinforcements to pop up. So anyways, since the British get there first, since they're closer, they should release, and they have an aircraft carrier. I predict that they would put in some air support, some air cover, long-range torpedo planes, bombers, whatever, and send them over there to soften up the target. So then, but also a wider deck on the Bismarck means it can fit more anti-aircraft guns. Question mark over there. So anyways, what happens now? Wait, how long has this been going on? Ooh, 14 minutes. I better hurry up. So anyways, the Bismarck is going. Planes are coming overhead, and they're going to try, and they're releasing bombs, torpedoes, but the Bismarck can hold its ground. It can shoot down a good majority of the planes. But anyways, since the British ships are closer and they're faster, they'll get there first. I'm guessing the first ones to arrive will be a few destroyers. Now the Bismarck will be opening fire, of course, doing maneuvers to try and avoid some of the torpedoes that what's called destroyers. The British destroyers will be launching. So, anyways, we got at least a few, like I would say 3 or 2 destroyers, British destroyers, showing up. And I would say the Bismarck lands a few hits, at least a hit on one, and then crippling another, forcing them to pull back, and buying just a little bit of more time. So then hey, the German fleet pops up, or strike force comes in just in time to save the Bismarck's life, essentially. So basically, what's going on now? So now the British they're basically so close that they can fire upon the Bismarck, and the Bismarck can't fire upon it. But they're just out of each other's reach. But see, the problem is that now if the British engages all of its ships, it's risking huge casualties. So, and the British just can't afford that. It needs to protect its convoys and all of that. So anyways, so the British will have to retreat. And the Bismarck will limp back to port. What should we going on? Oh shoot, 17 minutes, I better hurry up. So anyways, the Bismarck limps back to port, and so that would equal 2 kills for the Bismarck, and severely crippled another ship. So that meant, the Germans, or aka Hitler, sees this as a great victory, and he wants another ship, another bigger, badder ship. But that's a what if video. That's a video for another time. So that's how the Bismarck would have survived, and that's changing some engineering. Excuse me. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. This is Michael Fortress from Different Battle HQ, signing off.